Hello and welcome to this video lecture, How to See and Value. Today we're going to talk about value. I'm going to share some very simple techniques and strategies that we can use to help us observe the world around us in value. For this video, we're going to use a landscape and outdoor scene as an example. Now, the first step when learning how to observe the world in value is to simply ignore the color information. Now, this does take a little bit of practice, but the most simple and common technique to do that is to simply squint. And squinting refers to how you can shut your eyes so that they're almost closed. And what this does is it allows less of the detail and color information while still allowing the value information into your eyes. So basically, when you squint at a scene, you'll be looking at the inherent grayscale value of the colors that you see. So squinting becomes a great technique that we can use to make value observations. Once you're squinting at your scene and you're staring at this blurry blob of value shapes, the next thing you want to do is look for borders and edges. So basically, anywhere where two shapes meet, you want to look to see if there's a clear border or division between the two shapes. So for example, in our scene, the most obvious borders are at the horizon line where the sky meets the water. Next, there's the border between the foam and the water, so where the white strip of sea foam meets the water. And also there's a clear border where the big mass of rock, that big dark shape of rock, meets the water and where the rock meets the foam. And what this tells me is these three areas have all distinct borders. What that tells me is that there are three distinct value shapes. So if we take a look at this, this model here, this shows us the actually the four value shapes that I see when I squint at this scene. Now, in the case where the border or the edge isn't as obvious, it may be a fuzzy border or a soft edge. Like for example, here on our on the top plane of the rock, where the top plane of the rock meets the side plane in shadow, there is a border there, but it's very soft, it's very fuzzy. So what that tells me is that these two shapes are very close in value. So what I would probably do is end up grouping them together into one big massive dark shape. Because the point really isn't to see as many values as possible. The point is to simplify into as few values as possible. So anywhere two value shapes are very close together, you want to learn to combine them, to group them into one value shape. Now, the next step is to look for the absolutes in value. And absolutes refers to the absolute black and absolute white, the two ends of the value scale, and they are pure black and pure white. So if we look at our scene here, this scene, fortunately, does have a very dark shadow. It goes almost to black. And the foam is almost a pure white. So this scene, luckily, does have a pure black and a pure white. And what this does is it gives us a point of reference. So when we want to compare the grays, basically all the subtleties and all the grays in between black and white, if we compare them to the pure black, we can see how dark a gray is. We compare light grays to pure white, we can better gauge how light it truly is. So that's why you want to look for the absolutes. Now, if your scene doesn't have a pure black or a pure white, like for example, if let's say our scene was a more overcast day, it's a stormy day, and everything starts to shift, there's less contrast, everything shifts to a more neutral gray. What you can do in this instance is introduce the absolutes. And one way you can do that is to introduce a black or white object. So for example, I have a Sharpie pen here to compare my blacks. And I have a piece of paper, a pure white sheet of paper is great for comparing all your lights and light grays. So whenever you don't have the absolute pure black and pure white in the scene, you can always introduce them by introducing a pure black or a pure white object, and then comparing all the values in your scene. And finally, the last step is to understand relative values. And what relative values means is basically you want to know what's around or next to the value in question. So anytime you want to make a value judgment, you want to pay special attention to what's next to it or around it. So let's take a quick look at this classic optical illusion. And you want to ask the question, the obvious question is, which center square is darker, which center square is lighter? And the answer may surprise you that they're actually both the same value. And what this diagram shows us is the power of relative values. So because these values are surrounded by contrasting values, dark surrounded by light, light surrounded by dark, it makes the gray square seem much darker or much lighter than it really is. So you want to be aware of relative values. So going back to our scene, here you can see how the sky, the light sky, is touching the middle gray water, which will make the sky appear a little bit brighter and also the water appear darker. And if you look at the foam is surrounded by dark. It's surrounded by dark gray and touches a dark rock. So the foam is going to be a little tricky because it's surrounded by so much dark. It's going to appear much brighter. And finally, the rock is close to middle gray, so it doesn't affect it too much, but it may shift your judgment. So when you are observing your scene, when you're making value judgments, always be aware of what's around the value and what's next to the value. Well, that's it for this lecture. I want to thank you for watching. In the next video, we're going to go over some examples. I'm going to go over a few different scenarios and show how I would make value judgments. So stay tuned. In the meantime, if you want more video lectures, more courses, or if you want to read the text version of this lecture video, How to See in Value, all you got to do is go to the website. That's www.freshdesigner.com. And there, over on the front page, you should see the full article on how to see in value. So that's it for today. Until next time, get out there, keep drawing, and build up your mileage. Bye for now.